All right, team. Today, we're talking about building a blueprint. We're going to move past just reading about stuff and actually create a project that takes these abstract Python concepts and turns them into something real, something tangible. This is all about giving you a hands-on way to really solidify your core skills. So let's just dive right in. So the whole philosophy behind this thing is right here. We're not just, learning isolated facts. We are building something you can actually run, something you can interact with, something you can even break. And honestly, that's where the best learning happens.
Okay, so a quick heads up on this. This entire project blueprint, it was generated with some AI assistance. But I want to be crystal clear about this. This is not that low-effort, copy-paste AI slop you see everywhere. Think of this as the result of a very carefully engineered prompt, one that was designed to create a focused, super high-quality learning plan. It's really about using AI as a precision tool, not as a shortcut.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the project prompt itself, then we'll cover its core requirements, map those requirements to the actual coding skills you're going to gain, and then we'll walk through the 5-phase build plan, and we'll finish up with how you can take this whole process and repeat it for whatever you want to learn next. Okay, let's get into it. First up, the PKVS project prompt. So what are we building? We're going to build a super simple local key value store. You can think of it as kind of the hello world of data systems, and it is absolutely perfect for what we need to accomplish here. So what is PKVS really? Well, at its heart, it's a simple little web app for storing key value pairs. Think names and phone numbers, that kind of thing. But its real purpose, the reason we're doing this, is to force you to practice and, this is the important part, to integrate fundamental Python concepts into one single working application. Next up, let's talk about the core requirements. Every good project, whether it's huge or tiny, starts with really clear rules and boundaries. So let's go ahead and define the rules of the game for our PKVS app. Functionally, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to use a plain old Python dictionary to hold our data in memory. And to make sure that data doesn't disappear when we close the app, we'll save it to a JSON file, which is really just a standard text file for data. And then finally, a basic web page is going to serve as our user interface. Simple. The tech stack here is intentionally minimal. We're just using standard Python 3, Flask for a super lightweight web server, JSON for our data file, and of course, a virtual environment to keep our project totally clean and isolated. No heavy machinery needed here. Now, really pay attention to the right side of this slide because what we're excluding is just as important as what we're including. We're deliberately avoiding things like external databases, cloud services, and complex libraries. And look, this isn't about making it easy. It's about eliminating all the distractions so you can get true mastery of the fundamentals, file handling, data structures, and the basic client-server model. And this brings us to the most important part of this whole thing, the learning payoff. How do these simple project requirements actually translate into the core skills you need as an engineer? This one little project manages to cover 4 really critical areas. You're going to handle some light system administration by setting up your own environment. You'll work directly with the operating system through file I/O, which is just a fancy way of saying reading and writing files. You'll use core Python for your actual logic, and you'll get a real hands-on feel for how the web actually works. And this is the real magic of this project: integration. I mean, it's one thing to know what a dictionary is in a vacuum. It's a completely different thing to see how it connects to everything else. This project literally forces you to connect the dots between your environment, your code, your data, and the web. All right, enough theory. Let's get into the actionable stuff, the blueprint for actually building PKVS. This is the exact step-by-step plan you can follow. We're going to tackle this in 5 distinct phases. We'll start with the foundation, the project setup. Then we'll build out the data logic, wrap it all in a web application, create a simple UI, and then finally run the whole thing. Okay, phase 1. This is all about setting up a clean, professional development environment. You can't build a solid house on a shaky foundation, and you can't build reliable software without a proper setup. So what does this mean? It means creating a dedicated project folder, initializing a virtual environment inside it to keep our dependencies isolated, and then just using pip to install Flask. Honestly, this whole process should be muscle memory for any Python developer. It's that fundamental. All right, with our environment all set up, we can move on to phase 2, the data logic. This is where we write the functions that actually read and write our data to our file. You can think of this as the real heart of the application.
So we'll create a dedicated module, database.py, just to keep our logic clean. We'll write one function to load the data from the JSON file, and crucially, we'll handle the error for when that file doesn't exist yet on the first run, and then we'll write another function to save the data back. Now that our data persistence is sorted out, it's time to build the web layer on top. This is the part that's going to listen for requests from a web browser and connect them to our backend data logic. And this is just a perfect illustration of a basic web app. In our main app.py file, we'll define a few URL routes to handle user actions. The main route will show the data and let you add new data, while a separate delete route will handle removing items. But the key thing here is that these routes are just simple wrappers that call the load data and save data functions we already built. And now for the final two phases, where we really bring it all together. We're going to build the user interface and then actually run our application. And finally, the moment of truth. We'll create a simple HTML file inside a templates folder. This file will have a little loop to display our data and a form to add new entries. Then, with just a single command in the terminal, we'll start up the Flask server and see our creation come to life in the browser. And that brings us to what I think is the most important takeaway from all this. This isn't just about building one key value store. It's about establishing a repeatable blueprint for learning pretty much any new technical concept. So we've just walked through the entire journey from a single, well-defined text prompt to a fully functional running web application on your machine. This is the power of having a clear, constrained, and phased plan. You can apply this exact same structure to learning almost anything new. And so that brings me to my final question for all of you. Think about the next thing you want to truly understand, not just read about. How can you define its core requirements, its constraints, its build plan? What's the core concept you're going to build a blueprint for next?